Yeah, thank you very much. Do you hear me in Reykjavik?
Yes, we do.
Yes, okay, very good. Well, thank you very much. I am Sigurður Kristinsson, Vice Rector of the University of Akureyri, and I would like to begin by expressing our appreciation for the initiative that the Foreign Ministry has and foreign ministries of both nations have had in this affair. And this includes both the MOU from just over a year ago, the Nansen Professorship, and this very seminar here today. And I can confirm that the process of nominating a Nansen professor is at the very end stage, but it has not been, it has been, I think, almost everything but announced already, so this will be announced very soon. Now, the first scientific session here today, or the first of two scientific sessions here today, is we have two presenters. It's Dr. Ingibjörg Jónsdóttir from the University of Iceland, and her presentation is called A Journey into the Melting Ice. And Dr. Trausti Valsson, also of the University of Iceland, and his presentation is called Climate Change and Other Drivers of Settlement of Change in Iceland, the Past Used to Predict the Future. And we will reverse actually the order of the advertisement, so that Trausti will begin and then Ingibjörg will follow. We have an hour and a half, or almost an hour and a half. We will have a coffee break at 3:30 or so, and then at the end of the program here today, around 5:30, we will have a reception here at the University of Akureyri, and it is being planned for the Miðborg area here in the new building at Solborg. And so we will have an opportunity there to mingle and to talk, and I encourage and invite every one of you to come and participate in that social event at the end of today's program. Now, so I believe Trausti can have up to half an hour or so for his presentation, and then we'll have another half an hour, and then we will still have time for general discussion. So here you go.
So you see the slides in Reykjavik, okay? I do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be able to participate in this seminar. It's enormous how much is happening in this field, the interest of foreign superpowers and all of that. And together with our own interest, where it started, probably it can be said to have started in Norway with the famous Norwegian explorers. Well, I'm presenting here climate and other drivers of settlement change in Iceland, and I am doing this because, and this what we are working on, I and my two colleagues there, is a kind of a model on how we can assess the changes and predict about the futures, how the settlement changes will be regionally in Iceland, and then that very similar things will apply for other high north countries and regions. We base this, and I have been working on this for a rather long time. We base this on the study on a study of Icelandic, the development of Icelandic settlement patterns in the totality of Iceland's history, and as it says in the under subtitle, it's used to predict about the future. This is the official name of the conference, and these are the main publications. It started, my work on it started in 1993 with a book called Land sem auðlind, Land as a Resource. and then followed several publications, and I will review some of them to give the total, because this has been leading up to this what we are looking at today. Like I said, we use the history of Iceland the planning history of Iceland to study how the settlement patterns have changed. And some 10 years ago, I published this book, Icelandic and in English, on how the settlement patterns in Iceland have changed over the 1100 years. This book can be read in PDF format on my homepage. So if you simply put my name on Google, it appears on the top of the Google list, my homepage, so everybody can read this book. It's a big one, 480 pages, 1,250 figures. This is another book I have published that has been working with these changes that come with global warming. It was published 6 years ago, and I'm going to review a few things from that book that I and my colleagues have been working on publishing more scientific material, more scientific papers in the last few years. So using Web of Science, you can find those scientific articles in for instance, the Futures magazine journal, and in the U.S. Transportation Survey, something like that. One of the pictures I published in this book are these shows the new circles. We used to have these circles around these continents here, Africa and South America, but the great change that is coming now, we have new circles around Northern America and Eurasia. And we have written a scientific article on this, like I said. What is important to note in terms of, it's not only opening this shorter distance between the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, but it's also, in a systematic sense, very important that there is a second route always for every country that is located on the circle here. It does mean, for instance, if there are conflicts here in the China Sea in the future, or the Persian Gulf, or the Suez, or whatever, there is always this route around here to the north. We know in Iceland very well the importance of a second route, or this northern route from the Second World War, because then it was made possible, where is this arrow here, to mobilize and partly to feed the Russians with this shipping convoy route. It's called in Icelandic Northern Stríð, the north of conflict, to the Kola Peninsula here, Murmansk and Arkhangelsk. So we know that from our history how important this is. It was only in that way possible to bring all those things over to Russia to help them mobilize. Another major thing what we have been working on is spatial systems. I start by reviewing this. There are basically two spatial systems: a point center, like we know from shopping centers, and then a linear center that we know, for instance, from shopping streets. Of course, there's a combination. There are certain point centers that are very important in the global spatial system, but also there is this linear center practically today running from east to west, west to east. And I located this here around the Mediterranean Ocean, New York and Peking. And this is then the ribbon of habitation, where very few people live north of this ribbon today, but it will extend the global warming. It will go in steps north to north. And also this linear center will move north. That changes a lot in terms of the spatial position of many countries. This we claim that is going to result in due time, maybe 100 years or something, in a new global spatial center with the North Pole as the center. And that will mean that we here in our area here, where is the, in our area here, we are not like in the earlier picture at the edge of the periphery of the habitable world, but will be close to this new center. And Vilhjálmur Stefánsson called this Arctic Ocean could possibly develop into the new Mediterranean Ocean of the future. So that will be very important, I guess. This is from an article we published last year in Futures. It's on future changes, activity structures of the globe, and we made a series of 8 maps. First map being positive features in terms of what is happening in the world, and then 4 negative features. This map here shows all the positive features mapped together, put together with an overlay method. The darkest is best, here the Kola Peninsula, here northeast England, Greenland, and the western coast, parts of the western coast. And this is not very scientific, but so it comes somewhat close to the truth. It's based on, for instance, we had the maps from USGS, where the most oil and gas reserves are. They are here and here of the North Slope, in Alaska, and here, and also where the sailing route will be, where in what areas we will have land that is getting sufficiently warm to host development. So this is just one of the many maps. Then in the next article, we published an overview of 10 global settlement patterns. And this is one of 3 tables we published in this article, also in the Futures journal. And these are 4 drivers driven by global warming. And the first one is towards the poles, towards coast in warm countries, 3 to high central areas in warming countries, and 2 central areas in cold but warming countries. And there is always these drivers, forces that pull or push. If you think about this as a vector or an arrow, these patterns, then there are always some forces that pull it and others that push it. This is from the book I published in 1993. I translated this. It's a long table, so I published it here on 4 slides, and it is in more detail with internal movements in Iceland, and it is divided into 7. Where is this here? Into 7 columns. It starts with governing clans at the coasts, and then people start to move inland as the resources start to get exhausted at the coast, and then this continues still further in 100 years later. These I will not go very much into this. This is clans fight for power, the Sturlungaöldin, which meant that the Norwegian took over in 1262, and this is the length of the period. It's somewhat hard to find the arrow here. Here it comes again. So, and then the third slide is as urbanization started as the coast around 1850 with fisheries developing there, and then the arrows pointed to the coast, and then there were seasonal changes, and then I end by making predictions about what will be the governing patterns in the future, and this was made almost 20 years ago, and the history or development in this century, in the last 20 years, have shown that, okay, I need to go back, that it's really happening, that the settlements have been moving further inland. They used to be mostly at the coast 100 years ago. Okay. So here are certain predictions that I made here. Reykjavik and Akureyri export ports, highways and highland roads, good roads, flights unnecessary. I think if as the highlands have become green and the snow has mostly disappeared, then we can build the highland roads and go in a few hours between all parts of the country. So then finally we come to the last three slides from the forthcoming article, and the first one deals with patterns that are driven by warming or by cooling. I'm not sure that this can be read in Reykjavik. I think it can be read here, but the first pattern is by warming towards the highlands of the interior, and we in our history have frequently experienced the reversed, and that is in cool period people were thrown back from the high-lying areas to the coasts, and then the next. This is a second table showing 5 patterns that are driven by improved technology and resources. And first here, there was the resources were at the coast, and secondly, transportation cost drives to the interior. It was not only warmer period as the warming periods came that drew people to higher lying areas, and the resource cost drivers to the interior. These are different patterns: transport and resource cost drivers, and transportation connected drive towards the coast, and then 7 resource created cost drive towards the coast. And then finally, patterns driven by an important spatial position. Shortly after settlement, the center started like the 2 bishoprics in Skálholt and in Hólar developed, and other centers, internal centers, started to pull people. This is a rather modern development. That is the ring road. That is the linear center, like we saw on a global scale earlier. That is now pulling people. For instance, Höfnir, Hornafjörður, Egilsstaðir, and Selfoss, they are growing very fast, probably because of this, mostly because of this. And then towards the spatial center of the country, it will be held in the future. A spatial center of a country always has a pull, but it will be helped very much with the growing, with the increased vegetation up there. The vegetation edge is advancing already up there, and the snow line is retreating, and the glaciers will disappear, and so we will have a totally different country. But then we come to the last pattern, which is towards important coastal settlement areas in the future, and that will happen as, for instance, oil start to be exploited at the Jan Mayen. Then some people will move over there. Also, a transshipment harbor somewhere in the northeast, and then also the oil in northeastern Greenland will not be able to harness it without help of the West Fjords, maybe Akureyri too, because Greenland actually goes over Akureyri. If you go north from Akureyri, you go there to Greenland. So that is so my lecture. If there are questions, yeah.
I thought this was fascinating.
Okay.
I'm interested in this. Obviously, a lot of data went into this and into this modeling.
Yeah.
How are you looking at the Arctic as a whole, the circumpolar area, to look at the models? Because Iceland, you have very nice data sets for Iceland, but what about looking at Alaska or Russia, which is becoming a fascinating place for migration and movement of population for economic development? Are you doing this in other places?
I think I need to repeat the question because this is only my microphone. Yes. So a lady asks about if we have been doing this for the whole Arctic Ocean area. Yes, we are working on it now. We are preparing an article on this. You saw these maps we were mapping the positive and negative features, and now we are looking on the Arctic Ocean from the top and mapping where the fishing grounds will be, where the oil and gas fields will be, all of these things. What areas will be most hazardous in terms of ice, sea ice, and that all adds up to a certain picture of the future.
I should have introduced myself. I'm Anna Kurtula, and I'm here as a fellow from the National Science Foundation of the U.S. And I'd like to talk with you some more about future research.
Yeah, her name is Anna Kurtula. She is working here. She's from the United States.
We have time for another question.
Já. Já, það heyrist, ég skal endur taka spurninguna svo. Já.
With respect to the accessibility
of
regions,
do
you establish differences between small countries such as Iceland, where the interior is accessible most of the year by means of technology, and huge spaces such as Canada, for example, where the north of Canada has been inaccessible for decades and may continue to be so. Have you established clear differences between those Arctic spaces with respect to the overall size of the regions?
Well, Thomas Ingi Ulrich, the former Minister of Culture, asks if we have been looking at, well, it says simply clear that this could happen in Iceland, that the center of the landmass becomes an attractive area. Mentioning Canada, this vast territory that is very hard to claim and will be for a very long time. We have looked a little bit into that. The most thing that is most worrisome in terms of utilization, because these could be the future areas of the people of the earth to live in. If the very hot countries with the less water by every decade now, like the birds and fishes, so they will move. Also, like in the history of the earth, this has been a pulsation with the ice age, people went from the globes and back again. And what is most worrisome in terms of utilization of these high north areas, Canada and Siberia, is that they have huge fields of seafarer. It's permafrost. And if the permafrost builds up in that way, the earth is frozen, and every new layers of the earth, it gets frozen, and so it stacks up. These permafrost areas up to, I think, 80 meters thick. And once it starts to thaw and the water runs away, then it's only mud. And so many towns, roads, airports, railways are built on permafrost today. And that will mean that they need to be rebuilt on stable soils, and eventually the water will go and the ground will get densified. But that will be one of the biggest problems in terms of making these high north areas accessible in these countries.